Now, Rishi Sunak is set to mark his first year in number 10. That'll be on Wednesday, but he's got problems at home and abroad.
The Mail this morning is reporting that up to 25 MPs could be set to hand in letters of no confidence to the 1922 committee after the loss of 2 by-elections on Thursday. They've not been able to hand any in up until he's been in office for a year.
And, of course, on top of that, he's got the Channel migrant crisis and the war in Ukraine and the Middle East. They're just adding to his woes.
Let's talk to political commentator Piers Pottinger. Good morning to you, Piers.
Good morning.
Look, I don't know if this is true or not, but these 25 MPs, it's not enough to spark a vote of no confidence, but are they just desperately trying to press the self-destruct button?
Well, I think you're both too young to remember an old game there used to be called instant insanity. And that's what I think these 25 MPs, if they exist, are playing. This is sheer madness, because the one fact about election campaigns is that nobody ever votes in a divided party. There isn't time for a new leader. In fact, what Rishi really needs to do is start delivering. He doesn't need to reshuffle. With the rumours about a reshuffle next week, I don't believe that'll happen. I hope not, because again, I think that's another example of instant insanity. He's facing all kinds of problems, and also we're in world terms at a very dangerous time. And the last thing we need to do is remove a Prime Minister who may not be the most exciting, may not be good at communicating with the ordinary person in the street, but he's steady, he's a man of integrity, and he's proved by his diplomatic tour that he has had some effect. And to replace him now, I don't know who with.
Well, that's exactly.
I mean, it's crazy. And I do hope these so-called Tory rebels have a good look in the mirror and think to themselves, what on earth are you doing? They're not helping the party, they're not helping the country, and the last thing we need is instability in this country at the moment.
But could it be a way of putting pressure on him to, as some Tories say, to become more conservative?
Yes, well, of course. I mean, there are lots of people who'd like to see tax cuts. There's an awful lot of talk about inheritance tax, which I personally think is rather a sideline. I don't think that's going to win an election, but proper tax cuts. There are signs that the economy is growing, is beginning to grow. And so Jeremy Hunt's austerity campaign is beginning to pay off. And tragically, I fear that what will happen, has happened so often in the past, the Labour Party will capture an economy that's just on the up and then destroy it. But, I mean, the interesting thing about the by-elections was something that very few people are really talking about, was the success of the Reform Party. Because in both cases, if the people who'd voted for Reform had voted Conservative, which would have been the most likely, they would have won. So the Reform Party, not the Lib Dems, not the Labour Party, are the biggest danger to the Conservatives, because many people will vote Reform and who've said they're going to stand in every constituency.
So, I mean, it's about 5%, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, that is a very significant number. And so, yes, he's got to get more conservative. He's got to deliver some old-fashioned conservative stuff. And he's got to put in a bit more passion. His speech at the conference was worthy, but had no passion. And the business about vaping and smoking and stuff, really, people are not that interested in that.
They're not going to win you a general election.
No, not at all, not at all. But, I mean, Starmer has played it very safe at the moment. He has no policies. He's not saying one thing nor the other. He's had 13 years in opposition to come up with something big, and they've come up with nothing themselves. But he is playing a very dangerous game, because one trip up could lose him the election, rather like when Neil Kinnock became too
I was going to think he literally tripped up on the beach.
He tripped up on the beach, but he was so smug about winning, and everyone turned against him. And of course, Starmer's very conscious of that and playing it very carefully. But I would say to these 25, if you're thinking of putting a letter in on Wednesday, don't do that. Rip it up and put it in the wastepaper basket where those letters belong.
OK, Piers, good to see you.